Good day, and welcome to another episode of Mindful Drawing. This is the 21st iteration of leading these mindful exercises, which is amazing to me. And hopefully they've evolved along the way, or at least offered many opportunities into different ways of practicing a state of mindfulness through the act of drawing. Today we're going to look at expanding trajectories as a way of centering and diffusing ourselves into the awareness of the page. Each act of drawing in this mindful practice is a bit of the same, and always something new. For me, the path that expands from a single point outwards onto the page suddenly absorbs all of my awareness and becomes its own small world. And hopefully in this practice, you can find your own worlds of creativity and explore them and expand them into your daily life. So come along and join me, and let's draw together. I was thinking today about we have drawing that starts off by mapping trajectories across the page and kind of using those to flow and map outwards from a central point as a kind of constant extending and returning track. And I think we can do a little bit of a warm-up along that just to encourage our minds and maybe let that be a little free and open thinking about things that start with a center, maybe just putting the pencil down and down somewhere and beginning to form some sense of center. Maybe that's a circle or a spiral, something that hovers around or orbits there, just to move the fingers and the hands. Start to get comfortable in your workspace, get set up and stretch out any kinks in the back or strange angles in the arms and hands. So you're in a place you feel be for 20 minutes or so to just relax into the space of drawing. And I like to move around and find some new centers, move things in an opposite direction. Stretch out that wrist a little bit, let it get involved. The fingers be a little more expressive as they attempt to hold their connection to that center area. We move with a little bit more force and speed, letting it wobble through its cycles, still hover around and form that starting place. And I think I'll switch hands too. If it's comfortable for you, go ahead. It's probably going to be a little choppier. Here I get a lot of resistance from the pen, getting to know what I'm using to draw through forcing it perhaps to do some things that are not as normal for me, using my left hand or working in a forward motion instead of a pulling motion. Skips, jumps, I start to feel it in my fingers and my hand. And be aware that that may not be how the pen wants to draw, but it can. And I can make a choice to use it that way and take something from the skippy, sketchy part of it, or switch directions and just go in the direction that's more pulling with the pen. Now here we're doing something circular, and so it's always going to have to return through a bit of that action of pushing and pulling. But perhaps in one direction we find more control, more smoothness, more ease, and absorption into the creating of these centering marks. And take a chance to connect with our breath through a couple of them. Maybe really slow it down, find the hand and direction that's most at ease. And as we're drawing, finding a rhythm to our in-breaths, to our out. Perhaps starting to look for the count of revolutions. I have an in for 1, 2, 3, and an out for 1, 2, 3. Is that speed consistent or variable? Rearing myself just a minute, I see that it starts to normalize to an in of 2 and an out of 3. And we don't have to control exactly where that starts and stops, but using it for a few breaths to bring that awareness to that connection more globally to our body, that rise and fall of our chest and sternum and stomach as we breathe in some kind of regular rhythm. Keeps us remembering to breathe as we get engaged or excited. Make sure we're filling our lungs with oxygen. And hopefully that's gotten us warmed up and in a place that we can let some ink or graphite flow out along the page and just explore this centering and expanding through trajectories. So on a new piece of paper, on a new page in the sketchbook, just starting again with this. I'm going to start by placing the pen down anywhere, just letting it go outward from there in a curve or a line as far as I can. And I think this is a starting point, is a good opportunity as we come back to that initial place to take a breath in and just follow the trajectory somewhere out to the end of the page. Breathe in as we return and begin again. In, and you can work your way around from this point or go out randomly, just reaching to new ends. Here as I come in, I notice that the arcs are curving kind of towards me, probably because of my angle to the page with the ease of reach. And I can just let that happen. It's a place of ease, comfort there. Focus on my breathing in towards the center and out from there with a smooth trajectory in and out to an edge or an end. And we could continue from the same center, filling in new gaps, or as things start to get filled, as the space becomes perhaps crowded, we can always shift our way to a new center. I think I'll go ahead now and perhaps do the same thing. Start with a point, breathe in, then breathe out. When I come to another line or an edge, I can choose to start or stop. Here, I think I will make shorter arcs, breathing into the center, slowly moving out the trajectory till I come in contact with an edge, returning and flowing outwards. Perhaps the edge is the paper or another mark. And this is an opportunity to find an attention, whether we stop or cross other elements on the page, and then bring that awareness to it and just try to have consistency only in that moment of returning to the center and then moving out with a trajectory until we've made the choice to stop. And then finding balance just in that short space of moving the pen and the pencil, breathing, let everything else fade to the background. And anytime you feel that the space you're working in starts to get crowded or full, begin again at any point. Flow outwards. Each one's an opportunity to either practice some consistency or just shift things up and just let whatever moves across the page start to happen from that center, from a single trajectory outwards. This one for me, switching the direction a little bit, just letting it feel different to arc in another orientation. These shorter spaces or narrower spaces between the initial subdivision that occurred on the page. Oh, a little moisture on my hand. Bring some attention back to my arm to hold it up. They let me breathe and really absorb the tactile feeling of the mark. This pen being a bit scratchy, especially when going slow. I can feel the feedback in my fingertips. That being a sensation, often in many practices of meditation, we'll use the focusing in on a sensation, on the organs of sensation, as a starting point for detaching from those senses. That hyper attention to the in and out of the breath, space of vision, or the space of vibration here in the fingers, sounds around us. Each one allows us to focus in order to unfocus out. And at some point, when combining the breathing and the speed and vibration, we just begin to sink into that short span, long span of making a trajectory with our pencil on the page. Fade. We get a bit of a sense of things fading to the background and an opportunity to ease into the local space. From time to time, I like to return to my breath and sometimes just observe and see where it has gone. Is it regular, consistent? Has my mind fallen into the pattern of aligning with the stroke, or dropped back into the autonomic subconscious, just managing oxygen levels to activity levels? And as I observe it, knowing I can make a choice to guide it, there's always a limit to that control. If we're not getting enough oxygen, the body will hopefully take over and fill that space a little bit more. Getting too much, maybe I'll shallow things down. I find I can do that a lot. I focus too much attention on my breath. I often breathe too deep, too often. Get a little lightheaded. So we can relinquish some of that control, especially in the attention that's being drawn in by this other act. And after we've established a rhythm, letting the body kind of normalize or equalize itself on its own terms. Trusting that it's always going to keep breathing. It's what it does. We just get a little chance to guide it from time to time. And that through that guidance, we have some agency in our degree of interface to situations. We can guide our calmness or our anxiety with a little bit of influence on our breath. We can increase a short-term boost of performance with some conscious attention to our breathing, or calm down after an intense work session just by slowing it, regularizing it, giving it a rhythm that aligns then with our actions, our blood flow, our central nervous system. Moving in with my trajectories here to some of these smaller and smaller spaces of confinement that are happening as I subdivide this page. These ever increasingly dense little worlds that begin to emerge in whatever space of trajectory you've created. Perhaps they're little star patterns, dense pinwheels, or squiggles winding their way out from a center, spirals filling the space of the page together. And through the repetition and focusing in, some of these boundaries that for me are in this current drawing are confining the trajectory to a region, also establish a sense of rhythm and repetition. Things happen at many scales relative to each other, many sizes relative to each other, in a near repetitive but each unique way as we adapt to a new situation, as we either refine or expand our actions and awareness within that context. Can we get very dense and maintain a connection with our breath from time to time? We draw very slow. We'll let multiple strokes fill the space of one breath. This narrowing in, an exercise of action at a local, precise moment, just right now, just in the drawing, giving us a chance to quiet some other thoughts. All of our attention is here. And then hopefully, through that quiet or re-expansion, a re-perspective in the space of calming attention. As we have a little time to draw, just be in our own space, let the guiding fade away, take a few minutes to continue to explore the scales of expanding trajectories, recentering, and connecting. find that it is in these quiet spaces where I can have an opportunity to form a sense of gratitude for these conditions of, for me, a feeling of, in a sense, doing nothing. And there may be so many things that need doing or being asked of us to do, that in this time where I just draw, perhaps stare out a window or meditate, that while there is a bit of doing something involved, I feel that I reach a space of doing nothing, being a bit of nothing, relax and be thankful for that time, knowing it is a bit of a practice and an exercise to be prepared to be calm in the face of the doing many things, doing some things. And I'm thankful to have the oscillation between the two as a conscious experience of where that I can always drop in and out of different states of tension, relaxation, stress. And that one medium for doing that for me is in this act of drawing. Each find our own connections and mediums that detach us from many concerns, guide us into a local time scale, a local concern for a little while. As long as I start to reach this stage where the drawing becomes its own thing, and I start to want to either drift into it, keep on going, which I highly encourage if you're feeling it, feeling motivated and absorbed, or to take a moment, prepare myself for the next adventure that's coming today, whatever that may be for you. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate seeing everyone and having this chance to draw together. I hope it can be as grounding for you as it has been for me. Thank you all for joining. That was very opening and grounding practice for me, and I hope that you could get the same out of it. If you like what we do here with these mindful drawing exercises, please leave a comment below, give it a like, let us know other topics we could explore that you might be interested in. I'm happy to expand my practice, incorporate new ideas, share them all with you. Have a wonderful day and be well. Thank you. It's interesting that every day filming here, the environmental conditions shift as I'm backed by a window. Perhaps not the most effective strategy for a filming studio, but in the space where I get to practice this drawing and then transition into the work of the day, having a far-looking window with bright or variable natural light and weather conditions helps to stay connected to the rhythms of the world, even while absorbed in our digital space of communication, numbers, data, programs. A way to pull in and out, to pull back and forth, to see and unsee, and to be reminded that things keep going on. Clouds keep rolling, the sun keeps moving relative to our perception. The earth keeps rotating even if we can't feel it. The wind keeps blowing. Perhaps the cars keep moving along. Birds keep singing. Or as long as they do. If we keep breathing, bringing an attention to where we are, to what we are doing, and having that balance between critical reflection and an acceptance of the way things are, and perhaps the way they could be different. Opens our space of creativity as learners, as highly adaptable and resilient beings that can discover so much about ourselves and the world, our companions in it, in just a small space of being with it. And for me, one of the ways to drop into that being is through this practice of drawing. There are many long-standing traditional practices of meditation that have all found their own ways to guide the observer, the witness, into that space of just being for a little while. If all we are is being, we might lose ourselves to some of the necessary actions of living. But dropping in from time to time, having that intense awareness, connection outwards to all being, all things, is something I am grateful to be able to enter with myself and with others, and with this way of creating. And as our friend, the blade of light, sneaks into the page, we begin to fill out this pattern. Maybe there's some time to just sink in and have a little fun drawing with it. Switch over here to a pencil and just see where it goes.